Time for the analysis. Please don't get scared by this word. It's actually much more simple than you guys think it is. And watch this video. Hopefully you are watching this video and I will take you through how simple it can be. There's the whole essay, in case you've forgotten again. Alright, here's my analysis. Despite his best efforts, Connor is maturing and coming to realize that he needs the strength and wisdom of others to survive. Reese's history is also fiercely independent, and in running away with Connor and Lev, she finds herself trusting in and relying on those around her for the first time. This dynamic of lost souls bonded together by circumstance is so often seen in fiction. Rue and Katniss, Oliver Twist and the Artful Dodger, Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Right, I've done 3 things in this analysis. I've talked about the impact of the turning point on Connor. I've talked about the impact of the turning point on Risa, and then I've compared the 2 characters, Risa and Connor, to characters from other novels. That's what we usually call the link. Notice how I haven't even really said that much specific about Oliver Twist and Huckleberry Finn and Ruddy Ruddy Ra. I'll let you in on a little secret. The Hunger Games is the only text of these that I've read. I've seen Oliver on stage, like the musical. I vaguely know the story of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, but I'm no expert on these texts. You don't have to be. What you're doing is you're pretending. You're just showing that you can do it, basically. Okay, so here's the breakdown. Analysis is like asking yourself the question, so what? So if you go back to the explanation, if Risa had chosen to stay on the bus and be unwound, she would never have influenced Connor to become a better person. So, who cares? So she influences Connor to be a better person. Like, how does that matter? Why does it impact on the story? So, I'm explaining myself further. Despite his best efforts, so Connor tries to be really, really tough and like, I'm like an alpha male. Connor is maturing and he's beginning to realize that he actually can have relationships with other people around him and he can trust other people and it can make him stronger. So I'm telling you why this all matters. And then I talk about Risa. She comes from being a state ward and being super independent and having to fend for herself. But now she realizes that actually she quite likes Connor and she relies on him and trusts him and she wants him to make her safe. And this is a new thing for her. So I'm telling you why this turning point matters. I'm telling you why it impacts on the story beyond the fact that Connor has this thought in his head. What does that thought actually mean for these 2 characters? So, I'm answering the question, so what? I'm also comparing, that arrow is supposed to kind of point at Risa's sentence. I'm comparing Connor and Risa. I'm reminding you that they're both super independent. And that's why they initially don't really get along, is because they both want to be the boss. They both want to be the one in charge. But then they come to realize that actually they can work together quite well, quite effectively. The last bit where I talk about this dynamic of lost souls, it's just showing that you understand that there's other books out there. Like I said, you don't have to have read them. People who often write about literature, they haven't read every book in the world, but they understand, like, there's this word called tropes. They understand the tropes that are used in storytelling. A trope is like almost like a cliche. So you've got this cliche of Rue and Katniss, who would never have like come together if they weren't thrown into this horrible situation. It's the same with Oliver Twist and the Artful Dodger. Oliver actually gets sold basically into slavery on the streets of London, and he meets the Artful Dodger, who's this super clever little beggar who actually goes around and like picks pockets. They never would have been friends if it weren't for the horrible situation. Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, again, never ever would have had this relationship if it weren't for the unusual scenario that they're flung into. Huckleberry Finn is a young boy and Tom Sawyer is like an older black man, and that interaction never would have happened in the 19th century if it weren't for the unusual situation they find themselves in. All 6 of these characters are like lost souls. They've all kind of been abandoned, just like Connor and Risa. Now, everything that I just said there, That's the kind of stuff you have to say at level 2 and level 3, really going into like the depth of it. What does this all mean, and in what way are they lost souls, and blah 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 blah. But at this level, all you need to actually do is identify the fact that they are similar to these other texts. Now, I'm not saying this is going to guarantee you to get an excellence, but it's definitely heading in the right direction. If you really wanted to get an excellence, you might then go on and say something like, when Katniss and Rue first meet each other, they are mistrustful, just like Rhys and Connor. Just like Rhys and Connor, they also learn that trusting each other and working together will increase their chances of survival. So there you go. That's my thinking on the spot, adding a little bit to my analysis to make it more effective. All right, I know that a lot of you won't even try to write analysis, but I really hope that you take something away from this of how simple it can be to ask yourself the question, so what? Compare characters to one another. Potentially, I'm not saying you have to do that. That's just one thing you can do. And then compare the characters that you're talking about, the situations you're talking about, with ones from other texts. Do remember, we try to talk about novels with novels, films with films. In the real world, when you go to university and if you study English, it's not like that, and it's just a silly rule. But for some reason, that's what NZQA wants. They want you to talk about novels and compare them to other novels. So don't talk about films, even if you've only seen the film version. Talk about novels when you're talking about Unwind. So that is your analysis, otherwise known as your link. And your next step is doing your statement, and then you've done a whole paragraph. Congratulations, almost.